All right, Kell at West Meck this week. The key for Kell this week, you gotta keep the positive momentum going, getting their first win on the season. Big win over Providence last week. Going into West Meck, West Meck has been pretty much the only consistent team so far in the South Meck 7. So, on paper, this looks like the conference favorite you're coming into. So, you got to find a way to shut down the quick strike offense of the Hawks, disrupt the quarterback, and then on offense, you got to be able to run the ball. Harding, even though they got blown out last week, did have some success on the ground against West Meck, so you want to try to emulate what they did. Conversely, for West Meck, when you look at Kell, you see wide receiver Cedric Gray having a really good season. When he's in one-on-one, he can go up and get the football and make plays. That's the first thing. Second thing, you got to be able to control the Kell front. They did a really good job in shutting down Providence and holding them to 10 points last week. So up front, you're gonna have to find a way to neutralize them because if they're able to get pressure, then that can cause some problems, and then you're gonna be in a real interesting battle, for 4 quarters. All right, we got Barry going on the road to take on Concord. We saw Barry last week. It was a tough loss at Olympic. Right now with Barry, they're struggling a little bit with being young. I think they have some decent numbers, but their coach Howard is trying to do his best in getting these young players to learn schemes, and they're a little bit banged up right now. But you're going into Concord, and Concord is kind of struggling in their own right. So this is a game that both teams are going to feel like they have a chance to win. So if you're Barry, Coach Marty Paxson is the coach at Concord, and he's going to run the ball first and foremost. So your run defense has got to be ready to go, and they had some troubles last week at Olympic stopping the run, so they're going to have to be ready to go. Concord is not in our normal area, but we'll take a look at it real quick in their key of beating Barry. So the key for Concord here is Barry's a spread team. They try to get their guys in space, and they try to put their athletes in the position to make plays. So they got to be able to tackle well in space. The second thing I'd look out for is the special teams. Their kickoff return team had 2 touchdowns. One was called back against Olympic last week, but number 26, I don't know what his name is because it wasn't on the roster, but he can go. You want to kick away from him and make the other guys return it because if he gets it, he can go to the house real quick. All right, big game in the Southwestern. We got Butler going on the road to take on Porter Ridge. I think Butler's key for victory right here is to number one, they got to limit big plays, especially in the air. We've seen it a couple times this season where teams are going deep on Butler and they're able to have some success. Well, the good thing for Butler this week is Porter Ridge is not exactly known for taking those deep shots, but Coach Hurts is a very intelligent coach, and if he sees something is working against the team, he's going to try it himself. But first and foremost, Butler's got to stop the run with Porter Ridge. When you talk about Porter Ridge, that's the first thing you talk about. The second thing for Butler is they're going to have to control the Porter Ridge front seven. They are very fast to the football. Where Porter Ridge can be hurt, though, is in the secondary, so they're going to have to make plays in the passing game. Porter Ridge, your key against Butler, number one, I think they can break tendency a little bit. They typically stick to their offense, but I think they can break tendency and go play action and take some shots. See what they got. They do have some speed on the offensive side of football where you can try and get a matchup off some base action that you've run in the past. Secondly, defensively, you got to know where number 5, Keon Lassane, is at all times. He's the guy that can make Butler go. And especially after a game like last week, Butler will be hungry to come out and show that they're still a top team in the area. Some people are questioning a little bit, even though they beat Rocky River. Wasn't the same typical Butler that we're used to seeing. All right, we got a game here in the Southwestern once again. We got East Meck going on the road to take on Independence. East Meck coming off a tough loss at home to Porter Ridge. Their key this week, number one, I think offensively they've got to find a way to sustain drives. They only put up 7 points last week against Porter Ridge. And your defense, you have some good players on that defense, but they're out there, a a long part of the game. They're going to get worn out, worn down, and that's not what you want, to be successful. Conversely, for Independence, they were in the showcase out at UNCC last week. Had a good, good showing, I think, for about 2.5 quarters, and then about mid to the end of the third quarter, Hickory Ridge was able to take the lead, and then Hickory Ridge got the momentum and then just kind of ran with it. So, they take some positives from that. I think they played really well in the first half, especially on defense, able to stop them the run. East Meck is going to be more of a spread type team, so I think that plays a little bit better to Independence's strengths as a defense. So, number one, get after the quarterback, and they got a young man, Clausen, another one, that's doing real well. I believe he's already in double digits for sacks for this year, so he's going to have a chance to make some plays. And then offensively, only 7 points. That's not what they've been used to this year. They got to get that air raid and offense cranked back up once again. And I think, they'll be able to do that in this game here against East Meck. And then this will be another important win as I know their goals are, the playoffs. And, they're still in a good spot right now. All right, so this is an important South Meck 7 game. You got Harding going on the road to take on Providence. Harding has probably played a pretty tough schedule once you start looking at, some teams they've been playing here. You mean with Hough and Gaffney and Mallard Creek and, West Meck last week. So it ain't been easy. But this week they're playing Providence. And number one, when you look at Providence, you look at their 2 receivers. So the secondary is going to have to be able to match up on those guys on the outside. And it's going to be a tough matchup to do so. And number 2, offensively, continue to run the ball. I believe they're trying to find their identity there. They had some success last week against West Meck, and they're going to try to build on that here. Conversely, for Providence, tough loss on the road at Ardrey Kell last week. They got to be able to bounce back. They can't be down because they still have a shot at getting hot and getting on a run and making a run in conference play here. So only 10 points on offense. Number one, you want to find a way to get that jump started, get the ball to your playmakers early on, and let them go to work. Second thing is, don't let Harding get confidence, because you let them hang around early in the game, they're going to feel like they're in it, and then, you're going to be in a dogfight. So if you can, you want to try to find a way to hit some big plays on both sides of the ball and try to put them away early on. All right, our next game is Hickory Ridge, coming off the big win in the showcase, coming on the road to take on Garinger here. And, the key for Hickory Ridge, I think lies on the offensive side, is continue what you found in the second half. And what they did was they were able to get to the outside with some speed, and they mixed that in with some inside power stuff they like to do. They want to control the game, control the clock, and then score that way. And then the defense wants to get the quick 3 and outs and get off the field so that offense can continue to milk that clock and grind you down and wear you down, over the course of 4 quarters. Conversely, for Garinger, last week they had a tough loss at Myers Park. No shame in losing that game. Myers Park's one of the best teams in the state. So they got to come back, shake that off, and continue to play well and continue to play to their strengths. The things with Garinger is their offensive production has really kind of catapulted them, up to that, next level of teams from, where they were before. And in the case of Hickory Ridge, if you get an opportunity to make a big play, you've got to make it. Usually, especially on defense, they're not going to, be out of place too much. They're going to execute well. And when you get your opportunity, you have to seize them and come into the game confident. All right, we've got Lake Norman going on the road to take on Mallard Creek. And Lake Norman's coming off a loss at West Charlotte last week. They were in the game, but then it kind of got away from them towards the end. The key for Lake Norman here, Mallard Creek's physicality at the line of scrimmage. On both the offensive and defensive lines, especially the defensive line, that was the thing that stood out in the showcase against Vance last week. So you got to find a way to either slow those guys down or use that aggressiveness against them and attacking on offense. Conversely, for Mallard Creek, I think their key here is, when you look at this game, they've got a talent advantage, but they can't have a letdown. They're at home, they're going against a team that most people expect them to kind of roll over. But you got to fight the complacency, and it's a bit of a short week too. Mallard Creek playing on Saturday and then coming back to play Friday night, so they got to be mentally ready to go, execute the game plan, and don't let Lake Norman have any turnovers and things of that nature. Plays on special teams, he's got to be sound in all three phases. All right, so this is the game that we'll be attending. This is Mooresville, 5-0, going on the road to take on Hough, who is also 5-0. This is a big rival game up in the area. The schools don't like each other, and I expect it to be a really, really, really huge crowd, especially from both sides, to be honest with you, because Mooresville will travel, and I know Hough will always be there. All right, so with Mooresville, they're running that air raid stuff on offense, and then defensively, they have some issues in stopping the run. We saw, last week that North Meck was able to bust a couple big runs and then make some plays on the outside, one-on-one situations. So your key on offense, if you're Mooresville, is to be balanced. Hough is really, really good in the secondary. I don't think you'll be able to sit there and throw it, more than you run it. They've got a really dynamic running back who made some big plays last week in their victory. I think you got to put the ball in his hands a couple times and then in multiple ways. And they've been doing that, all year long. Defensively for Mooresville, I really think you're going to have to make plays, one-on-one in the passing game. Hough has a lot of speed on offense. Their quarterback's a really good runner in Bonner Stewart, and Pryor is a speed guy in the backfield. So you're going to have to tackle well in space and then make sure that if they catch it, they go down where they are, because if you miss a tackle, these guys can go to the house real quick. Conversely for Hough, offensively, they got to run the ball well, and they got multiple ways to run the ball. They run the jet sweeps, they run the quarterback stuff, and then they run the typical halfback stuff from gun. So that's a lot right there. And then, they just need to mix it up and be balanced with it. Defensively, I think what Mooresville does is a good match for them. I think the big key is getting pressure on the quarterback, because if he does get comfortable, there are some nice concepts, and no matter how good you are, they are hard to defend. So the Hough front four or front three, whatever front they use, is going to have to be really tough and come off the ball and then make some plays against that quarterback. All right, we got Olympic. This is the traditional rival game in South Charlotte. Olympic going on the road to take on South Meck. We saw Olympic last week, and they played really well in the big victory over Barry. Their key on offense, and Coach Fowler told me, they nicknamed the offense, especially the running backs and the offensive line, the Trojan Express. And I tell you right now, they were trucking last week in that victory. I think they must have had over 300 on the ground easy. So continue that momentum going into South Meck is their key here. And then for South Meck played a game. It wasn't really publicized. I think it must have been scheduled last when they went. I guess it was up in Winston-Salem. I'm not totally sure, but they played Winston-Salem Prep. And they won that game 44-0 to get their first win on the season. So they have confidence now. This is their first conference game on the year. So now they got a clean slate. Come into conference and see what they can do here. So conversely for South Meck, their goal, of course, is to stop the running game, force Olympic to throw the ball, get them in third and long. And then on offense, I think Olympic did a good job. Obviously with Barry, they shut them out. But they're going to have to find a way to run the ball. They've got a running back by the name of Jabari Dalton. I hope he's healthy, because I'm not totally sure on the, we don't get injury reports. But I think he's a very dynamic young man with the ball in his hands. And you get the ball in his hands, I think he has some chances and opportunities to run against this Olympic defense and make something happen. All right, back over to the Southwestern Conference. We got Rocky River going on the road to take on Myers Park, and Rocky River almost beating Butler last week at home, lost 31-30. Obviously, they're key here. You're going against a really, really strong offensive team in Myers Park, and we say it every week, and it's very hard to do. You've got to shut down those receivers, man. Um, I think Rocky River has some ability in their secondary to do that. Seeing them against North Meck, they did make some plays in that game, and that was another competitive game. And I think this is a game that Myers Park can't sleep on these guys. I think a lot of people look at Rocky River and still think that they're not this very good team. I think they're a very well coached team. I think they're on the cusp of really doing something over there under Coach Gray. And then conversely for Myers Park, I think with Rocky River, you got to account for where Jalen Sharp is at all times. He plays middle linebacker. He's a legitimate D1 recruit. He's a good leader, leads by example. And if you're in that Myers Park O-line and, if you're May at quarterback, you got to see him and then, make sure he's accounted for on whatever play that you're calling. And make sure that, he's you're protected against what he can do, because I think he's really good. And I think he's a bit overshadowed with all the talent in Charlotte. So you get him accounted for, and then you work from there if you're Myers Park. But should be a good game over at the Mustang Stadium this week. I'm sorry, Gus Purcell Stadium. That's the name of it. All right, we got Vance going on the road to take on Hopewell. Vance obviously coming off the showcase loss 20-7 against Mallard Creek. You look at Hopewell, I think Vance's key, of course, is not allowing the big pass plays, because Hopewell does have that ability to make plays with their receiving core. They've done well with that, here in the now we're in the middle of the season, so this first half of the season, they've done well making plays, on the ball that way. Conversely, to keep for Hopewell, I think they got to stop the run. I think Vance really wants to run the ball first and foremost. They want to be balanced on offense, but it starts with the running game. And the one score they got against Mallard Creek, it was set up by a nice run by Joseph Morris down the sideline before they got the little play-action touchdown pass in the red zone. But they've got to be able to do that if they want to, challenge Vance here. And it's going to be a tough game, because Vance is going to be really motivated to come out and atone for that loss they suffered last Saturday. All right, and then the last game we're going to look at, we got West Charlotte, 4-1 on the season. Very quiet 4-1. No one's really talking about them. They're going on the road to take on a 4-1 North Meck team that's been getting a lot of press. So for West Charlotte, this is their chance to really make a statement here. I think, their offense has really gotten better as the season has gone along. They put up 41 last week. That was, I believe, a season high in scoring. And they got a freshman quarterback in Joshua Mahatha that's really starting to grow into his own. And they're putting a little bit more on his plate each week, and he's very intelligent. We talked to him after the Harding game. So the key is obviously keep that offensive progression going. They're doing a lot of different things, in the run game, offensively, and he's got some. Mahatha's got some good guys to throw to, especially the Walker receiver, who is committed to East Carolina right now. So I think they're not a bad team, and North Meck can't take them lightly, and I think that's their number one key. Coming off a loss in a showcase game like against Mooresville, you can't hang your head, and you got to go back to work. And I know Coach Mormon and those guys will have them ready, but they can't have any complacency. West Charlotte, I think, played them tough last year, if I remember correctly, and then I know they played them tough 2 years ago because I was there and covered that game. So, this will be an interesting game to watch. The second thing for North Meck is make sure they're good to go. They got some guys going both ways, and when you continue to get to this point in the season, those little bumps and bruises, can hang with you and just make sure that they stay healthy and do what they need to do. But this is a very good game, once again, in a very good conference in the IMAC. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Good luck to everybody this week. Stay healthy. And we'll see you out there at Hough. You see us, say hello. Thanks.